Let's do the so below of the suicide prism, I call it. Of the pain, truth, and that prisming out to the you have, you are, and you can. So, how I said that pain is like a resentment, the memory, when you look at it from a broader view, what is it on a personal view? What pain is like individually that all of us can relate to? And for me, how I wrote it was, who am I measuring myself to? That's pretty much what pain all boils down to. Who am I measuring myself to? And because this is going to be personal, I'm talking about this in the framework of how I've been living my life and how I've been experiencing life. So when I show you this template and upload it probably to Reddit, I want you to actually like use that as a formula to frame your own understanding of like what this is. Because even if you aren't a suicidal person, I think it helps for you to understand why you even are anchored to life in the first place. I think that's something everyone wants to know, but we don't really question or think about because it's so broad. It's extremely personal. So yeah, let me talk about more of the personal aspects. Who am I measuring myself to? Heartache comes from the lonely awareness of my specific private jealousy or hatred for an unfair pattern of neglect. And that's what I said before with the resentment, the memory, where it comes from. So these are basically, your pain basically are the questions you have without question marks. The questions that just exist. And they almost seem meaningless because they don't have an obvious answer. And when you try to dive deep into figuring out that answer, no one gives a fuck. And even in your head, you don't really give a fuck because you're distracted by everything around you. Like I said, the labyrinth illusion that you have. But then, like I said, truth is the thing that maintains itself on all three of these prisms, I call it. This is all one prism being filtered three different ways. That's why I call it the suicide prism, demonstrating that trust comes from feeling the surface of something negative. I am the solution to my own confusion. So with truth, for me, asking why am I measuring myself, that prisms out for me to discover the truth even more specifically into the you have, which is why am I uncomfortable with myself? The you are, which is I have something 7 billion don't have. This is what I was talking about, how like we're all unique, but we're all the same. I have something, myself, you, whoever else, everyone on this planet, every animal, whatever. I have something 7 billion people don't have. So what is that? I'm not going to answer that question by just asking that question. I have to look around that, which is looking at the prism and seeing what surrounds the understanding to even come up to that conclusion of what is my uniquely, out of 7 billion people, what is that trait that defines me, allows me to use as career, success, personal growth, connecting deeper in my relationships, basically all of what life is. What the fuck is that thing? And then the you can, which is how can I devote to my purpose? So you see how they're all intrinsically linked? Because that's how truth is supposed to work. Truth, there is no separation in truth. Truth just is. So for me to acknowledge it, that's already creating duality. Acknowledgement is duality because that's conscious and unconscious. To not acknowledge something is obviously unconscious because I don't see it. It's not within my peripheral vision. For me to consciously acknowledge it, it's for me to address it. It's for me to say, okay, this is real. Now what? Not this is real. Oh wait, is it real? It's this is what it is. What can I do with this shit? And that's where you get the discussion of how can I turn this into a tool, which should be the only focus when you're talking about information that you want to use as useful information. Not what others think of your truth. How can I use my truth to help myself so that my purest expression can be in forms of helping other people? Because I'm just being myself. Not because my agenda for helping myself is to help others. That was the self-destructive mindset that I had in this fourth dimensional frame of mind where it was like, the way I can anchor myself to life and wanting to help people is by using my personal pain to help others. And that's how I transformed it into like the fifth dimensional understanding that I am that I am. And the nature of self-expression, or the essence of what communication is, allows me to actually not only be my purest self, but to have other people naturally fuck with it because they just know what is my purest self. I'm only showing my purest self. So naturally, I don't have to have any more self-judgments, you know? You're just in a state of being. You're always in a meditative state. You don't need to sit down cross-legged and start breathing. You're always like that, nigga, because when are you not breathing? When you're dead. But who says you're dead? The ego. Because the ego is the only thing that got left behind on this earth. So if you want to see a personal framework for how I use the suicide prism, I put At first I wrote, I measure myself to what I don't have, and started thinking about traits. Then I said I measure myself to my dad and Anthony, who was my brother, because I thought about the ways I emotionally felt left out by them when I thought we were so similar. So I was disillusioned by the fact that we were so similar in traits, but they were expressing parts that was lacking in me better. And so it came off in this braggadocious way where it was creating a resentment to memory. Where like in school and stuff like that, where it was like, yeah, fuck you nigga for like trying to do the most and stuff like that. When it's not. He's just in a state of being, and I'm creating an archetype in my head because all I've seen was the outside. I didn't want to dig deeper into myself to understand what connected us as the same thing. So there it goes. So it's like, who am I measuring myself to? And I realized who the archetypes were. It was Dad and Anthony, my perception of them, not how they actually are. Finally, I realized that I measure myself to what I don't feel, because I couldn't connect their strengths to what was inside me without condemning their weaknesses. So that's how I said it. And then we have truth. Remember that barrier that's always there, never unchanging, unmoving, yet is everything, because it's structure. It's the geometry of reality. It's the fabric of reality. What the you have, how this truth prisms out as the you have, you are, and you can is, for the you have, why am I uncomfortable with myself? And I came up to the answer because I was studying what I created. I create these models out of my own head, and I flesh them out, and I teach them immediately after I create it, or I try to, because that's how I learn and grow with you. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm coming up to my own conclusions and sharing that so that you can come up to your own. So, and this was like, why am I uncomfortable with myself? I came up to the answer because I realized what was the one thing I was always hearing from my parents that was like, I would just bluff off because it was like, I'm doing the thing you're saying I'm not. And so for me, it was that I never listened. And that's how I found light, from that understanding that I was originally uncomfortable with. Because darkness is just a different kind of light. I separated myself from my own thoughts because I didn't want to figure out how I was misunderstanding myself. So it wasn't that I actually never listened. It was that I'm so scared of misunderstanding myself that fear is projected to others as never knowing what the fuck you're talking about. And thus the communication issue with my ascension when I was younger, and the lesson that I had to internalize to reach this now fifth dimensional state in the present moment, and eventually the sixth, seventh, and eighth, and whatever, so on. You know, as I exist, as I am. For the you are, I have something 7 billion don't have. What is that? A knowing of the senses. I'm clairsentient. It's like, you see how that works, right? How like clairsentience, you know, it's on research, it's documented, stuff like that. So it's like, we know that it's an ability that other people possess. But because we're talking about personal, I have something that 7 billion don't have. It's a knowing of the senses. I am alone in the understanding that I know everything. What is that thing that I think that I know everything about? For me, the senses. I feel a room, get all this energy. Something happens, I feel like the people arguing, or like when someone's arguing, I want to argue. When shit happening, I have an impression of the things around me, regardless of the control I think I have over it. So it was the control of the emotional body, or the subconscious, that I had to realize, the fourth dimensional self. And so with that understanding, we're going to go into the you can, or the I can, because this is a personal understanding. How can I devote to my purpose? And this is split into two things, devote and purpose. So how can I devote? Like, what is devoting? You know, it's like committing myself or disciplining myself to a routine that I'm comfortable with, because there's always natural competition. It doesn't feel like I'm competing for the sake of making sure I'm better than somebody else. I'm competing for the sake of, I know I'm the shit in my head. How can I keep making sure I stay on top of my own ideals and values? So for me, develop my sentience. That's a lot of things now. And that's what I love about it. For the answer being so personal, yet simultaneously being broad, I have way more avenues to express who I am. Because I don't have to restrict it to certain, like, 3 things. I had this problem in my head before where when I was writing notes, I would always write, like, core things in 3s. And it fucked me up because I keep having new ideas about it. So I'd have multiple trinities, like, multiple diagrams of trinities on papers and pages and pages, trying to look for the perfect trinity that I could focus on for the rest of my life and that be the solution to my problems. But if life is always adapting, life is always chaos, in the sense that you have no control of it, so there always is going to be flux. Your acknowledgement of that is what's going to give you the control. So I needed a broad answer. So I'm glad that I created, that's why there's no good and bad. I'm glad I created all those trinities, convincing myself that I had the answer to my own reality multiple ways and multiple phrases and stuff. Because from writing hundreds of those, I realized there is none. It's whatever it is in the present moment. So when I wrote that trinity, that first or 32nd or 144th one, that was my reality at the time. So that doesn't mean to stop doing it. That means to acknowledge that that isn't it. Okay? It is. So for me, it was developing my sentience. That's a lot of things. That's watching movies and seeing all the different... This is shit I naturally already do. That I pick off of movies and stuff, for example. Where like, okay, his motivations, the way this is framed, the way it could be directed, me imagining how it was written in the screenplay, the... having discussions on the deeper topics of it, all that type of stuff. So it's like watching movies, playing video games, reading, looking for new knowledge online. Like, bro, there's so many different things that was liberating to me. Because now it wasn't restrained by one thing. It was the shit I was already doing. I put it in a different perspective. And that changed me. So there's the devote part, and then here's the purpose part. So like, what's your reason for continuing to devote to something? And that is... to remember my forgotten, and that is to remember forgotten knowledge. Yeah, you're probably wondering, like, how the fuck we switch like this, and it's like, later in the day, and my voice sounds different. Every 20 minutes I have to hit record again. I think it was at 20 minutes, and then I finished the sentence, and I didn't realize that it cut off. So when I was editing the video, which took hours, at least it didn't cut off like in the middle of anything important. And I don't think I wanted a tangent on that missing footage. But yeah, that's it for like what I call the suicide prism. Like as above, it's understanding that fundamentally the generalized aspects of suicide, or of this like pain, truth, and you have, you are, and you can prism, is that it's a resentment to misery or memory. Same thing, depending on how you feel. A resentment of memory, truth, and then what I call the labyrinth illusion, the unity principle, and the personality paradox. And then when we go into the more personal aspects of the suicide prism, the pain, truth, and the you have, you are, and you can, for yourself, the individual, it was, what am I measuring myself to? Truth. And why am I uncomfortable with myself? The thing I have that 7 billion don't have, and how can I devote to my purpose? Which that's pretty much split in its own two things, which is the devotion aspect and the purpose aspect. So, yeah, just take that into consideration. I might make a digital version of this. I don't know. It just depends on how lazy I am right now. I'm kind of tired. I might finish this in the morning. It's 2:31 a.m. I had a really good day though. I had some footage for like a couple episodes for the podcast, but I might just upload it as like one 2-hour episode for it. That was great. So I can't wait to upload it and then show you what we got. But for the suicide prism, like, what I put in the center of it, like this main, I don't know if it's gonna pop up like this here, because I'm using these two lights. Oh, I remember what I was saying in that last footage. Basically, the point of me creating the suicide prism was for me to demonstrate that trust comes from feeling the surface of something negative. So the whole, I am the solution to my confusion. I actually think I have this in, it might be in part 1, I'm not sure, but I'll say it again, it doesn't hurt. And that I was literally inspired to make this entire chart one morning because I was watching, there's a channel called Masterly Foolish, and one of the uploads, there's this lady named Miss Blue. She is such a goddess, but that's another note. I was watching this video by Miss Blue, and it was titled Different Ways of Connecting with Your Intuition. And from that just thought came in my head, and then I later called it the suicide prism and made that. So I'm like, I'm really proud of like how this came out. And I really like the style of video too, where I'm just sharing like my new thoughts and then bouncing them off with you. I want to have like a discussion of some sort in the comments. Like I got a good amount of subscribers for that. I mean, where am I at right now? I'm gonna check. Hold on. Oh, and also my a practical way to raise your consciousness. It reached 1,000 views. So like, fuck yeah, let's get it. Like, thank you so much for watching my videos. Like, You don't understand how happy that made me. And another thing is that just like you're so used on YouTube, like with the algorithm and all the YouTubers and just how old YouTube is, you're so used to seeing millions and or like hundreds of thousands of views, so it's kind of like meaningless. Kind of like how they cover like death in the news. Whenever I see like the numbers on my channel, it feels really intimate because like I have 222 subscribers right now. Someone subscribed yesterday. I'll do research soon on how to like grow as a YouTuber. I'll figure it out. The idea came in my head that just basically all the videos I'm already watching, that already is a similar audience to like the videos I make. So like just comment my thoughts on the videos I was already watching and had an opinion on. So that was pretty cool because I got some subscribers just from doing that. So yeah, even like my second video, the vibration of expression, like that had 192 views. That like, I just see it in terms of like sizes of classrooms. Like that's a lot of fucking people. Like that's like a legit community you got right there. So yeah, thank you for the support. Another thing I was gonna do to grow is basically sending the videos in the right subreddits on Reddit. But yeah, have a good day. Boom back, the way you're hearing me rap, where we know this shit trash, why would choppers react to the shit we made happen, find a way to escape, cause all alone can't relate, shit is so dark. Maybe I see my own life from afar, so much discipline confined in the start. Return to rock where I go hard in the crystallize, but right at home with my subconscious I'm feeling high, stumbling with my ego like I know shit, trying to wake up from my own hypnosis, read a couple books I found my gnosis, I got the Virgin Mary as hypnosis. The love and the light, cause I know it's divine, and I don't have to try cause I am, and I don't have to try cause I am, so you don't have to cry, baby, you can subscribe, just open your